So Lorna and your team, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jana and colleagues, and thank you very much to the VCheck Foundation for giving us the opportunity to come and talk to you about the opportunities to study at King's College London. As Jana says, I'm Professor of Palliative Care and Child Health at King's College London. I'm a paediatrician by background, and I'm also from Scotland. So apologies if any issues with understanding me. I will try and speak very clearly and very slowly, but do put in the chat if I'm talking too quickly. And as Jana said, I have Dr. Claire Ellis-Smith and Dr. Lisa Brighton with us today, as well as one of our current master's students. I'm going to talk very briefly about King's College London, and then Lisa will talk about the master's programme, Claire will talk about the PhD programme, and then it will be your opportunity. You will hear from Andre about his experience, and then it will be your opportunity to ask us any questions, and we will do our best to answer those. So let me attempt to share my screen. I'm hoping you can see one slide, not three. Yep, I'm getting a nod from Jana, so excellent. So why King's College? This is a little bit like a marketing campaign, but King's College is one of the top universities in the world, and we're 6th in the UK for world leading research, but actually 1st in palliative care research. We're also very multidisciplinary and 1st in the UK for allied health research, so physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and other allied health professionals. We work very closely with St Christopher's Hospice, which was the first modern hospice, which was established by Dame Cicely and colleagues in 1967. We have quite flexible study opportunities, which we will talk about more throughout this webinar, and as well as high student satisfaction and a research-driven curriculum taught by the leaders in palliative care research. It would be a great opportunity for you to come and study and learn and develop and take your skills back to the Czech Republic to continue the development of children's palliative care. The Cicely Saunders Institute itself was the world's first purpose-built palliative care research institute, and we're 1st in the UK in our research excellence framework. But more importantly, I think we have a staff and student body that are very passionate about undertaking high quality research that will change the lives of children and adults requiring palliative care across the world. So I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Dr. Lisa Brighton, to talk about our master's programme. And Lisa, if you just want to say when you would like me to move the slides, please do.
Yeah, perfect, will do. So hi everyone, my name is Lisa. Can I just have a quick nod from someone to say that they can hear me okay, or a wave or a thumbs up?
Yep.
These are perfect. So yeah, my name's Lisa. I am the programme director and I'm one of the lecturers here at the Cicely Saunders Institute. And if Lorna, if you could pop to the next slide, I'll just start to talk you through our wonderful MSc programme. So our programme is all about developing the essential skills to make sure that you can go away and appraise research and evidence in palliative care, maybe conduct your own high quality research and include clinical practice, including developing services across the world. And we want our students to be developing a deeper understanding of the psychological, social, spiritual and ethical issues in palliative and end-of-life care. We want to improve people's confidence and competence in their ability to care for people with advanced disease and their family. And we want people to take this knowledge forward as future leaders in palliative care. Our programme itself is delivered in a format we call HighFlex. I'll just wait for someone to mute themselves there. I think I've got a bit of an echo. There we go, thank you. So we deliver our programme in what we call a HighFlex format. So that means that we have students who are learning in the classroom and online at the same time. And this gives a bit of flexibility for people to engage in a course in a format that works for them, but without losing that classroom feel and making sure that you still get to be part of this overall group of professionals who are learning on the programme. The modules themselves tend to begin with a 2-week block of live teaching sessions, and that's a core period of engagement where it's great to have people there consistently. And then we use a combination of lectures, seminars, individual and group exercises, facilitated discussions, online materials and group presentations. And all of this is then supplemented by self-directed learning between the teaching sessions that we deliver and also beyond those live teaching sessions. And for each module, you'll then have an assignment, which we'll ask for submission about sort of 6 to 8 weeks after the module takes place. In terms of the different options for study, so our overall programme, if you wanted to do the whole MSc, involves undertaking 4 30-credit modules as well as the 60-credit research project. And one of our modules is compulsory, no matter what study option you take, and that's our research methods and statistics module, as that creates a real grounding for your future studies in this area. However, some people might prefer to take a different mode of study. So, for example, there's also the option to complete a postgraduate diploma, which would be undertaking the 4 30-credit modules, but not the research project. And some people complete a postgraduate certificate, so undertaking 2 30-credit modules. And for some people, they just want to dip into one of the modules on here. And so we also offer the option to do a standalone module if that's of interest. And what I'll do next is I'll talk through each of our modules that we have listed here. So, as I say, the core module that we require for all students, no matter their mode of study, is to undertake our research methods and statistics module. Now, this module is designed to give a detailed knowledge and understanding of research methods and statistics applied to palliative care in particular, and to equip you with the skills to appraise research and develop and execute methodologically robust research projects in your own country and in your own setting. And that's led by our wonderful Professor Richard Harding and Dr. Peter May. Now, this is the first of our optional modules. This one is called Assessment and Management of Symptoms in Advanced Disease, led by Professor Matthew Maddox, who's a physiotherapist by background, and Dr. Sabrina Bajwa, who's a medic by background. This module covers the epidemiology and pathophysiology of progressive incurable illnesses and looks at the mechanisms and management of common symptoms. It supports people to review interventions to control symptoms, including both pharmacological but also non-pharmacological interventions, and really focuses on those symptoms that are most difficult to control. And it's all about the skills to assess and manage symptoms and appraise new therapies. We then have our Applying Psychosocial, Cultural, Ethical and Spiritual Issues to Palliative and End-of-Life Care module. This is led here by our wonderful Catherine Bristow, who's a linguist by background, has done some excellent work around psychosocial issues and palliative care, and Reverend Andrew Goodhead, who is one of the spiritual care leads at St Christopher's Hospice. This module is all about understanding the psychosocial, cultural, ethical and spiritual issues faced by patients and their families and their carers in palliative care. It supports students to understand the effectiveness of different approaches and interventions and equips students with the evidence base and clinical skills on which to base their practice. We then have our Service Management and Policy module, and leading this here we've got Professor Catherine Evans, who is a nurse by background, Professor Catherine Sleeman and Leslie William, who are also both medics by background. And this is all about how services have developed and how it might be affected by different cultures or communities and resources, and how this interacts with local and national policy. It teaches students approaches to developing and managing services using evidence-based clinical practice, and also the evidence underpinning service development and how you adapt evidence to local needs, including detailed aspects of service management like finance and strategy and marketing. Then our final optional module is Applying Epidemiology in Palliative Care. This provides students with a detailed knowledge of the incidence and prevalence of advanced diseases, including cancer, but also non-cancer conditions, and understanding how epidemiologically based research approaches can be applied, particularly in a palliative care context. And this is led here by the wonderful Irene Higginson, who is a medic with dual training in palliative care and public health, and Dr. Anna Bone, who's one of our excellent researchers in palliative care and has done some amazing epidemiological-led research. Now, for those doing the MSc programme, there's also, of course, the important research project module. And this is an independent research project with a choice of topics either provided, or there's the opportunity to undertake a research project on a topic of your choosing. And all students will be allocated a supervisor who will support you in one-to-one meetings. And this is overseen by the wonderful Kennedy Nakoma and Beth Ann Page. Now, we know that postgraduate studies can be a daunting prospect, and we know that students can sometimes face challenges during their studies. So we just want to reassure any prospective students that there is a lot of support available as you navigate your time through the programme. All students are allocated a personal tutor as a key point of contact throughout the studies, and this is an opportunity to discuss their academic progress, but also your personal tutor can signpost you to the very wide array of support and resources that King's College London have to offer. Alongside this, there's other points of contacts that you can also seek support with, whether it's the module leads, your research project supervisor, or our programmes officer, Peter Lachev, or myself as the programme director, Lisa Brighton. Now, we often get questions about what our entry requirements are. So it's important to know that the kind of core entry requirements for our programme are a 2-1 bachelor's degree in a relevant subject and experience of working in palliative care or an associated area. And then there are, of course, language requirements because the course is undertaken as studying using the English language. And there's some guidance there of what that looks like in terms of international English language testing system scores. But also, if you look on our website, and we'll share the slides afterwards so you have these links directly, you'll be able to see other equivalent tests and things that are available in terms of understanding the language requirements for the programme. And then for those who are interested in applying, I've just put a little note here about our current application deadlines. But if you've got any questions at all about the programme, obviously we're here today to answer what questions we can. But we also encourage you to get in touch with myself and Peter via email. And we'd love to hear from you and love to answer any other questions.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I think we'll hold questions on to the end and we'll let Claire do her presentation about PhDs first. So over to you, Claire, please.
Thank you. And can I just check you can hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about postgraduate research degrees and specifically undertaking a PhD at King's College London. My name is Claire Elizabeth. I'm a senior lecturer in palliative care, and one of my roles is postgraduate research coordinator, which means that I really oversee kind of what's happening with the PhD students in the department and deal with any queries or anything that students need support with, really. And Beth Ann Page, who's not with us, works with all the admissions. So how it works is that she deals with candidates up until the point they enroll as the PhD. So she supports with all the admissions processes. And then once people enroll, then I will take over in supporting students and overseeing their studies. And Peter, as well, is the senior programs officer who works with us. We've also, there is an email there, PGR inquiries, which is the faculty PGR inquiries, and that oversees kind of all applications and queries that are directed to the Faculty of Nursing, Midwifery and Palliative Care. And Lorna, next page, next slide, please. Okay, so what is a PhD? I mean, a PhD is really an independent piece of study where the student conducts their own research with their own topic and their own question, and they work pretty independently to deliver the research. And the research has to meet certain requirements in terms of it has to be a novel, a new contribution to the science, and it has to be of publication quality as well. And importantly, it does have to be independent study led by the student. But of course, the student is supported by a supervisory team, and that will usually be 2 to 3 supervisors. Now, the supervisors usually have expertise either or both in the topic and or the methods that students choose. So for example, if a student chooses to co-design a new intervention, then the supervisor will have experience in co-designing and developing and evaluating complex interventions, and will have expertise in the topic. So, for example, if it's around children with cancer. The student is also supported by a thesis progression committee, which is made up of a chair and 2 independent advisors. Now, the 2 independent advisors usually have topic and methodological expertise as well. And the TPC, the Thesis Progression Committee, or TPC, meets 6 monthly. The purpose of the TPC is really to support the students. So the TPC members act as critical friends. They may ask kind of questions that are a little bit challenging, but really to support the student in developing their thinking and developing their methods as rigorously as possible. All students initially register as an MPhil, so that's just the way it goes. People register as an MPhil, and then at 9 months they go through a Viva process, which is a formal examination to assess whether they are working at the standards to transfer to PhD registration. And at that point, students meet with the TPC, who act as examiners in that point, and if successful, the student transfers to PhD. Most students in our department do a thesis incorporating publication, which means that they typically will have 2 to 3 publications of their research, and those publications will fit in as thesis chapters. So instead of having to write up a whole thesis and then write up a separate publication, they can incorporate their publications into the thesis as chapters and write around there. But it's really, really important that it's not just a series of independent studies that the student does, but actually it's one narrative, and each part of the thesis informs the next part, so that there's a clear story that goes from the beginning to the end. Next slide, please. So our current student profile at the moment is we've got approximately 33 students in the department. 26 of them are full-time, and 16 of them are, oh, I've got an echo. 16 of them are from overseas. Next slide, please. And we've got a whole range of topics. This is just an example, examples of some of the topics that our PhD students are doing their research in. So, for example, we've got emergency department attendance, we've got outcome measures for children and young adults, we've got PhDs regarding implementation, co-design, meaningful dying, person-centered outcome measures, e-health interventions, to name but a few of some of the topics that we've got. And next slide, please. So although the student works independently and they conduct their own research over the course of 3 years, it is still a learning and it's still a degree. And so the training component of it is really, really important. So all of our PhD students have access to taught modules. So they have access to the MSc modules that Lisa presented on, but also modules on quantitative research, qualitative research, and co-design. There's Skills Forge, which provides opportunities to all sorts of types of different learning, such as conducting database searches, for example, or preparing for your upgrade Viva, or writing for publication, just for example. So there are lots of free courses available to students as well. The King's Doctoral College also gives access to modules. There's a lot of well-being support out there, so kind of there's kind of support in kind of managing your well-being while you're undertaking a PhD, and there's a lot of support as well in terms of kind of writing support, particularly when you're writing in English, which may not be your first language. So there'll be support for students who are needing to write their PhDs or write for publications. So there are lots of support and resources available. We've got a fabulous PhD group who meets monthly to support each other. And this is a really, really good opportunity and a great way of learning more informally from peers. So peers who have gone through, say, the process of going through an upgrade will support students in terms of how to prepare for it. Frequently, students will do mock vivas for each other so that people can have the opportunity to practice practice taking part in a viva and practice answering questions. And generally, there's a huge amount of support and peer learning and peer encouragement from those PhD group modules. As I said, no, sorry, there's a mistake there. We've got talk modules again. We've got monthly faculty seminars. Seminars on a whole range of topics, which are all free to attend, and great learning opportunities to understand what other research is going on, and really to hear about cutting edge research that's going on in the faculty and in the departments. An important learning is monthly journal clubs, where the department gets together and we critically appraise recent publications. A really good opportunity to learn about recent research, but also learning about your critical appraisal skills and learning from colleagues who've got different methodological expertise. So, for example, if there's a paper which has got kind of more complex statistics in it, then there will be the statisticians who will support learning in terms of how to interpret and appraise the methods that are used in the paper. We've got methodological skills and researchers exchange. So this is where you can learn different methodological skills and opportunities to learn about research being conducted in the department, but also importantly, present your own research and get feedback and questions and share some of your own findings. And finally, we have evidence updates, which are conducted with the clinical team to kind of really learn about kind of research in practice. And next slide, please. So we've got 3 intakes throughout the year. They are in October, February and June. And the application for those start dates are, as you can see, so to commence in October 2025, you would need to submit an application in July 2025. To start in February, you'd need to submit an application in October, and to start in June, you'd need to submit an application in March. And those are typically every year the same start dates and application. For students from the Czech Republic, you typically need a bachelor degree with a score of 1.5 or grade B, and there's the link of how to apply as well. Usually you would need to identify a supervisor before you start and submit a proposal, and there would be typically an interview that students have to undergo. But there are far more details on the website with that link. And next slide, please. So unfortunately, our student rep was going to join us today, but she's had to send her apologies. But she did want to send some words of her experience of conducting a PhD in our department. She's in her 2nd year of study. Her name's Megan, and her PhD is in cancer cachexia. And she's doing her PhD within a large European trial called INSPIRE. And in fact, wanted to mention as well that the Czech Republic is one of the partners in the INSPIRE trial. So she's doing a bit of her own project within the INSPIRE trial, using some of the data that are collected in the trial. And her experience, I'll read this out. She says, there are so many incredibly knowledgeable and supportive people at the CSI, that's the Cicely Saunders Institute, which makes it a lovely place to work. I think one of the biggest benefits of doing a PhD at the CSI is the sense of community. PhD students are treated as part of the department, just like staff members, and we have lots of opportunities for collaborating together and learning from each other through shared training sessions, journal clubs, researchers exchange meetings, etc. There are also opportunities to support teaching on the MSc, and she invites people to reach out and discuss what it's like doing a PhD, and has kindly shared her email. So she'd be happy to kind of talk through her experience with any of you. And I think that's the end for me, but if we just move on, yes, and I think hand over to Andre. Is that correct?
Yeah, hello, I'm Andre. Hello.
Hi, Andre. I think it would be excellent if you were able to give our audience a little bit of a perspective about how you found studying our master's program as an overseas student. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm in my last year of the study. I'm doing a part-time and distant learning course, and I live in Berlin, Germany. And I really love the flexibility. So because I also work as a doctor in a hospital and also have family, and so it's very flexible with this distant learning option. But I also attended one course in person, so I could choose what fits most to me. I think the system is working really well for the distant learning, but of course the in-person has advantage of getting to the other people and have informal chats and something like that. So of course this felt even better than online course, but it's completely possible to study it online without going to London. And what I also really liked is the support. So if I had any problems, so I normally would write Peter, and he would answer instantaneously and would solve the problem for me. But also the support from my master thesis. So I had regular meetings and going through the progress. So overall, I felt really great support. And also the what you mentioned, that you feel like you don't feel like someone foreign. So they normally when I was there, the lecturer would have informal chats with the students, and it felt really like a really friendly atmosphere. And that's also what I liked. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Andre. That's really helpful. I hope that has given everybody a bit of a flavour of our programmes. I think I just wanted to add a couple of additional bits of information before we open up to some questions. Everyone here is interested in children's palliative care, and we have children's topics within all of our modules now. We also have lots about adults as well, but there's an awful lot to learn around both children and adults within the master's programme. Any of the PhD students that came to join us would become part of the Children and Young Persons group within the Cicely Saunders Institute, and there's around 15 of us now working on a variety of projects both within the UK and internationally. Does anybody have any questions for myself or Claire or Lisa or Andre? And don't be shy at all. We can take any questions in the chat, or you could put your camera on and your microphone on and ask us any questions. Marketa.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me? Can anyone raise?
I can hear you, yes,
right.
very clearly.
Good afternoon. My name is Marketa. I'm from Czech Republic. Of course, I'm from Czech Republic, from Ostrava. I work as the pediatric intensivist in Ostrava. And my question would be regarding the international English testing as a foreigner. Is the certificate of proficiency in English applicable or not for the PhD?
I'm going to look to my colleagues if they could put the link to there. So there is more detailed information on the website, and it is around, there are several different English proficiency tests, and there's also, if you've studied in English in the last, I think, 2 or 3 years in particular countries. So we can find out by looking at that at the website and put it in the chat for you.
Oh, wonderful! Thank you. So if it's online and I can look it up, that's absolutely fine.
We will put it in the chat, but certainly if you've got any other specific questions, we can check with our admissions team around what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. I'd be very interested in you having a background in paediatric intensive care, because obviously you look after many children with palliative care needs, and yeah, there is lots of research questions to be answered in that area.
Thank you very much.
The link is now there. Hopefully we can answer your question. Lydia? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. So what I wanted to ask regarding the PhD studies and the research linked to it. So will that mean that we'll kind of have I wouldn't say full-time, but a job or a practice or some sort of an internship where we can do the research with the patients? Or how would that look like? Because for the PhD, I understood we have to be there full-time. We cannot do it online. So yeah, I just want to know how will that look like?
So what normally happens with our international students that are studying full-time is that they will come to London for a period, often the first 9 to 12 months, where they might be doing some of their top modules, they might be undertaking a systematic review, and then often international students will go home to their home country to do any data collection, because your interest, and my understanding is the VCheck Foundation are interested in funding research that is likely to make a difference and happens in the Czech Republic, not to fund for you to come and do research in the hospices in the UK. So therefore most international students will spend much of their second, often into their third year in their home country, and then they may come back to do some of their writing up. It does vary a little bit depending on the student's own circumstances and the type of research that they're wanting to do. I think if I'm right, Claire, the minimum time that you have to spend in the UK during the 3-year period is 6 months, but most students spend a little bit more than that. I don't know, Claire, if you wanted to add anything to that from your experience.
No, that's absolutely fine. What typically happens is that students, so just to answer that first part of your question is, yes, the PhD is 3 years full time, and you do need to work on the PhD 3 years full time. So there isn't really space to do another job alongside that. You will be that 3 years is quite tight as it is, and then what you will do is you'll spend usually kind of the first 6 to 9 months in the UK developing your research proposal, working up your ethics, maybe doing a review, and then go home, do some data collection, and then it'll be a little bit backwards and forwards. And then often students choose to write up while in the UK with support of PhD students. But it's a little bit individual, and everybody has to kind of work it out for themselves a little bit in terms of what works best for them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lydia. There's a comment in the chat from Rachel, I think, interested in perinatal palliative care, and it's a very, very important topic. We know, unfortunately, the risk of dying is the greatest around the time during and just after birth, and I think it's an area in which there are quite a number of research questions that are currently unanswered. So I think it would be an excellent and very important topic area. I don't know, Rachel, if you had any other questions, please put them in the chat if you're not able to unmute. Jana.
Yeah. Lorna, could you please give us some examples of research topics for maybe master's and PhD, so our candidates may have some, idea what can be there for them?
In terms of master students, we are looking at a shorter time period for them to do their research project. And it's usually either some sort of review of the literature. So we have students recently who have looked at, support for siblings of children, of bereaved children. We've doing a systematic review of the literature. I have somebody at the moment who's going to review the outcomes for the literature on the outcomes for children who are on long-term ventilation at home. We do have some students, I'm looking to Lisa to correct me if I'm wrong, we do have some students where they may have the opportunity to do a secondary analysis of an existing data set as part of their master's programme. So we at the moment might have some data from the UK that might be interesting for someone to look again at. So we have some data on interviews with bereaved parents. We've analysed those data overall, but we haven't looked particularly at the experience of parents of teenagers and young adults who have died from cancer, and we know their experiences are slightly different. I don't know if Andre, if you would like to share what your dissertation topic is.
Yeah, I'm doing a systematic review on the topic of breathlessness. So I'm looking at medications because there are not many medications that work in breathlessness, and I'm looking into medications that are fast acting, because normally most studies are on medications that you take on a regular basis, maybe 2 times a day, and so yeah, that's my topic: a systematic review.
Thank you. And we often have, because our master's students tend to come from having worked in clinical practice or related practice, often come with their own ideas that we can help them to develop. Joseph, did you want to come in before I talk about PhD topics?
My question is concerning the publication. So I suppose that every student will have a special research object that must be published. This publication would be published in impact factor periodicals or just in any scientific paper?
Okay, so for our master's students, we would encourage them, if they have done a high quality dissertation, to publish. And they often publish in journals such as Palliative Medicine, BMJ, Supportive and Palliative Medicine, which are good journals. They're not Nature Medicine, but they are very, very good journals. Not all master's students will publish their dissertation, but we would encourage those who have done a good quality piece of work to do so. As a PhD supervisor, I always encourage my PhD students to publish from their PhD as they go along, and many of them will publish 3 or 4 PhD publications in good quality peer-reviewed journals. Related to that, Jana was asking for some examples. So we have a PhD out for advert at the moment where we're trying to understand the economic impact on a family of caring for a child with a life-limiting or life-threatening condition, and thinking about not just the impact in terms of hospital use, but the impact on the family of mum or dad not being able to work, of having additional costs to care for the child. I've had PhD students who have looked at the health of fathers with a life-limiting condition. So that excellent student who is now working with me in King's did a qualitative evidence synthesis of all the qualitative literature about what we understood about fathers' health and well-being. And then she interviewed fathers, did a primary qualitative study. I've also had students who have looked at the transition to adult health services in a very quantitative manner. So looking at the impact on unplanned healthcare use when you transition to adult services. All of those students have published in good quality journals.
Yeah, thank you.
Jana, is that enough examples?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. I can't see any other hands up. Does anybody have any questions? Aliska, apologies if I've pronounced that incorrectly. Good afternoon.
I'm just thinking how difficult it is to combine a PhD here in Czech Republic with an MSc program at the King's College and at the same time with work in the Czech Republic. I know it is individual, but maybe you have some recommendation or I don't know.
It's very personal, isn't it? What I would say is doing a master's first and then moving on to PhD gives you a better grounding for doing a PhD. I think doing the master's part-time, as Andre has given an example, he is continuing to work as a doctor in Germany. I think that is feasible. I think it's very difficult to, as Claire already said, to do a PhD full-time and to be attempting to work a lot of the time. That is not usually a combination that works well. What we do have in the UK quite often is our clinical colleagues might continue to do one clinic a week, or they might do some on-call to keep their clinic if they're concerned about their clinical skills and keeping up to date. But much more than that, if you're registered full-time, is quite tricky. It's something that you have to feel passionate about and want to do, and then you will find a way. I think if you are not sure, then it can become quite, it can be quite challenging.
Thank you. I'm just thinking about my situation because I am in my third year of my PhD here in Czech Republic at the sociology, and at the same time I really want to try this MSc program, but I'm not sure if I'm able to do it both in the same time.
That sounds a lot to do. If you're already nearly finished your PhD. Certainly in the UK, I don't think you can be registered on more than one degree qualifying program at the same time. It's not something I would recommend. We do have people who have done a PhD in an entirely different topic area who might come and do our master's program. It's not, it's more unusual, usually the other way around. But yeah, it sounds like you have a lot on in your current PhD and work.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I'm just trying, Rachel, I'm hoping that answer maybe helped a little bit, but maybe Andre can come in.
I just want to tell you, so maybe also if the MSc, maybe you can manage to finish it with less time, but you will get less out of it. So if you have more time, of course you have more time. There are a lot of extracurricular options, and you also will have more time for finishing the assignments better, for example. So I think if you just want to finish it, maybe you can manage in less time, but then in the end, it's a question why you're doing it, because I think you will get out more with more time.
Very wise words. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions about the content of the course, or? I mean, one thing that we didn't touch on really was, although we have quite a number of medical staff doing our course, we have lots and lots of people from lots of different backgrounds. So Claire and Lisa, do you want to say your own backgrounds? I think that would give an indication that we have a very multidisciplinary team and student body.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, I myself, my background is in psychology, and across, as you're indicating, Lorna, got our module leads, but also across our modules, we have so many people contributing to teaching, because we're very lucky to have the kind of connections and expertise within our department and within our networks to bring in people who are kind of the experts in the topics that we're studying at the time, which means that we have teaching from a range of people, whether they are from allied health backgrounds, whether they are from sometimes non-clinical backgrounds, if that's appropriate to the topic at hand. They may be experts in a particular research methods on the research module, for example, and that really adds to the diversity of kind of teaching on the course. But alongside that, I guess the other thing that's really important is that when we're talking about things being multidisciplinary and multi-professional, that's also very true of the cohort of students that we have on our programme. Every year we have such a mixture of people from all different types of backgrounds, and what's quite nice about that is there's diversity in terms of profession, but also diversity in terms of people's backgrounds, in terms of maybe what setting they work in, or whether it's what country that they're from, or what places that they've worked in. And what our students will often say to us is that they almost learn just as much from their peers and colleagues on the programme because of the diversity of backgrounds that they bring with them as they do from the expert lecturers on the course. And it just makes it such a lovely and exciting environment to study in. And I think it's a similar environment on the PhD programme, Claire.
Yes, it is. So I'm an occupational therapist by background, and before I did my PhD, I worked clinically, mainly in older adults and dementia care. And I would certainly say that you really benefit from, our PhD students really benefit from having a mix of disciplinary and professional expertise as part of their supervisors and thesis progression committee. And we do have a number of clinical academics as well who got both progressing both their academic and clinical careers alongside, and you can really kind of support PhD students who are interested in progressing a clinical academic career as well. So there's certainly a lot of expertise and background to draw upon within the departments.
Thanks, Glenn. And thinking of my own PhD students, I've had consultants, medical trainees, nurses, music therapists, statisticians, everything in between, which has been, it's been very enjoyable and valuable for everybody. Jana.
Yes. I would like to encourage all our local participants to ask. Maybe you might be shy, but I would like to just stress that you are now with the best suitable people from King's College to answer all of your questions, because later I'm going to speak only about the Czech Family Foundation support and our own selection process, and I'm not able and I won't be able to answer in depth your question concerning the study, like selection requirements, etc. So if you do have, we have still like 10 minutes, and I would be happy to use them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Trying to think if there's anything else about the programs that would be useful to share. I think from a PhD point of view, oh, Lydia, you can ask first. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I actually do have a question about that, about the criteria. You did mention that we need to get in touch with the supervisor before we actually send in. How does that work? So do we have to come with the topic with the supervisor and then find out whether we get into the program? And of course, I want to know how it works with the foundation, but yeah.
Because the VCheck Foundation are sponsoring students, then we will be able to find suitable supervisors with experience in paediatric palliative care and the relevant research methodologies. I think ordinarily when students are just interested in coming to King's, we ask that you go and find your own supervisors. We can do that through the VCheck Foundation process this time, so you don't need to you don't need to worry about that side, but we will be giving both topic and methodological expertise, because both are as important. Does that help, Lydia?
Thank you.
I think the other thing to say for PhD students who are going to spend, potentially most of their first year within the UK, we have links with quite a lot of our clinical services across the UK, and we are able to offer some contacts and some experience. They are not necessarily long clinical placements because you're here to do your PhD, but certainly if you want some exposure and some links and networks into the paediatric palliative care community within the UK, we can do that. It's not a large community, so I know just about all of them, and can certainly link you up with the various networks that exist within the UK. There's one for you, Lisa, in the chat. So Hannah's asking about what does a part-time master's look like?
Yeah, so there is a bit of flexibility, but our recommendation for part-time study is that students in their first year with us complete 3 of the taught modules out of the 4 that they'll do overall. So, and then in the second year that they do their final taught module and the research projects. And that just kind of splits the workload as equally as possible between the 2 years, because that means you're doing 90 credits worth in the first year and 90 credits worth in the second year.
Maybe I can also share my experience because it's my situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 4 times 2 weeks where you have to be full-time for the studying these modules. And you can either do it in London or per distant learning. And initially, I worked 80% at my work. But I also have a family, a small child. So I think that was too much for part-time. I mean, you have the time in between the modules, but then if you have this time and you have the assignment and this 2 weeks module, then it's quite a lot, I think. So in the end, also reduced my work further. I mean, if you're alone, have a lot of time in the evening and a lot of energy, then probably you can also manage it like that. So yeah, and I think also the research work in the end is also more work than before. Before you have this 3,000 words assignment, you maybe manage to write it in a few weeks. But I think for the master thesis, you also will need more time and constantly time in the end.
Yeah, thank you, Andre. I totally agree with that. And I guess the important thing in terms of the modules is that we recommend that all of our students start with that research methods module, because that's the core module and it's the basis for future learning. But in terms of picking the other 3 of the 4 optional modules, sometimes what students will do is kind of pick the modules in the order of actually how it suits their schedule in those couple of years. And so there's a bit of flexibility there as well. So because our modules run around a similar time each year, we don't tend to swap and change around when they're running. So we can always share an example of what the calendar looks like, for example, what the schedule looks like this year or what it's planned as for next year. And that might give students a better idea of how that might work alongside their schedules. And what I'd recommend is that if that further information would be helpful, if you get in touch with the email address that we've posted in the chat, so the MSc Palliative Care email, my colleague Peter will send you a course booklet that, as I say, has examples of timetables in, and just to see how that falls throughout a calendar year.
I think the important thing to highlight, Lisa, is it's not just the 2 weeks for each module. There's there is reading and writing and thinking to be done for each module.
Yes,
which is important.
Yeah, for sure.
So there are no further questions. So maybe we have time for one last. No one. Okay. So thank you very much, Lorna, Claire, Lisa, Andre, for your time. It was really helpful. We recorded the full hour so we can get back to the valuable information. And yeah, looking forward to our future cooperation.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope that was useful. If there are any other questions that come up, then please do email me. We'll try our best to answer them. And I really look forward to seeing some of you, hopefully later in the year, as our new incoming students. But Jana, do let me know if you need anything else from our side. And thank you very much to Claire and Lisa and Andre in particular for helping us with this webinar. We will leave you now.
Thank you.
You can speak Czech again.
Yes, I will switch it up. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Lovely to see you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Jak jsem avizovala, tak ti, kteří máte ještě čas, tak bych využila toho, že už jsme připojeni a nemusíme zakládat další meeting. Tak já bych tady promítla prezentaci, kterou mám sice v angličtině, ale budeme se bavit česky, nechala jsem ji v angličtině proto, kdyby náhodou se ještě někdo z King's College zůstal připojen, tak aby věděl. Tak počkejte, já budu sdílet prezentaci, obrazovku asi, že? Obrazovku. Tak, snad už. Mám to tak kolečko, ale už by to mohlo jít. Pardon. Tak. Tak a teď ještě musím tady toto zmenšit. Tak, vidíte prezentaci? Jo. Tak já mám tady krátkou prezentaci, jenom vlastně takové shrnutí informací. My budeme vyhlašovat výzvu, o které se tady teď ještě berte to jako pracovní, téměř teda potvrzené informace, které budou i obsaženy v té výzvě. My tu výzvu budeme vyhlašovat v průběhu příštího týdne, předpokládám zhruba okolo 19. března. Tady jsem nechala jenom z jiné prezentace naše motto, které se mi moc líbí a myslím si, že sem patří. A také i fotku našich zakladatelů, protože je velkým přáním Ondřeje a Kataríny, aby vzdělávání bylo v oblasti dětské paliativní péče bylo maximálně podpořeno, takže tato výzva je na jejich výslovné přání. Takže jsou tady taky s námi. Aspoň na fotce. Co se týče naší podpory, myslím, ze strany nadace rodiny Vlčkových, tak my jsme se rozhodli podpořit 2 studenty master programu a 2 studenty PhD programu. Co se týče master programu, tak preferujeme ten vlastně to roční trvání toho master programu, což je ta full-time verze. Nicméně je možnost, nebo jsme otevření případně, že by šla i ta částečná. Ta potom trvá déle než 1 rok. Myslím si, že to jsou 2 roky, že musíte splnit více jak polovinu těch jejich kreditů. Proč preferujeme ten jednoletý nebo ten full time? Protože na King's College každý rok se zvyšují, školné se zvyšuje v průměru asi o 7%, a tím, když to studium zvládneme, nebo zvládnete, vy úspěšní uchazeči dříve, tak to šetří samozřejmě náklady. Co se týče potom toho zapojení, on tam, André, hovořil o té hybridní formě a online formě. My se velmi zasazujeme pro to, aby student master programu se zúčastnil osobně všech těch modulů, jo? Že online připojení, ať je možné, tak pouze jako ve výjimečných vážných osobních případech, protože benefit toho, že tam budete osobně i s ohledem do toho networkingu se studenty, s vyučujícími, tak si myslím, že je opravdu důležitá. Nadace rodiny Vlčkových podporuje 100% školné, jo? Takže co se týče školného, tak 100% ta částka by šla za námi. Tady jenom orientačně ty ceny, jak se pohybují v aktuálním nebo v tom následujícím akademickém roce od října 2025 do června nebo července 2026. Co se týče PhD programu, už to tam zaznělo, jenom zopakuji, že my budeme podporovat pouze tu full-time verzi, která trvá 3 roky. Je tam sice možnost i té částečné, která trvá 6 let, ale tuto možnost my těm našim budoucím podpořeným kandidátům neumožníme, nebo tuto nebudeme podporovat. Jak bylo zmíněno, tak studenti jsou žádáni, aby minimálně ten první rok strávíte v Londýně v rámci PhD programu drtivou část toho roku, minimálně 6 měsíců až těch 12 nebo až 1 rok. Potom ty další 2. a 3. rok už se více věnujete tomu výzkumu ve svých domovských institucích nebo ve své domovské zemi v České republice, takže ta osobní náročnost tam nebude taková, ač ta časová ta zůstane zachována. Co se týče toho, vlastně té žádosti, která bude potom obsažena v té výzvě příští týden, tak součástí té žádosti bude motivační dopis správní radě nadace rodiny Vlčkových, kde byste měli popsat vlastně svůj zájem o tento obor, proč zrovna na King's College. Měli byste v ní zodpovědět otázku, co vlastně, jaký je váš cíl v tomto oboru dětské paliativní péče a jak chcete tento obor měnit. Také součástí toho motivačního dopisu, který bude mít maximálně 1000 slov a bude v angličtině, tak budete požádáni, abyste v krátkosti nebo ve stručnosti nějak nastínili vaše výzkumné téma, jak je důležité pro rozvoj dětské paliativní péče v České republice. Budeme také požadovat 2 dopisy, doporučující dopisy, které můžou být ze strany vašich nadřízených kolegů, učitelů nebo jakéhokoliv odborníka, který vás provází v rámci vašeho profesního rozvoje. Co se týče jazyku, tak v této části už necháme na vás, je to v češtině nebo v angličtině, ano, může ho napsat česky nebo anglicky. Dalším, tedy třetí součástí té žádosti bude taková jako finanční rozvaha, kde vy budete požádáni, abyste si zanalyzovali roční studijní náklady, jo? Jako bez toho školného, které teda jde za námi, ale cokoliv do těch vedlejších životních nebo do těch životních nákladů spadá. Takže kromě ubytování, jídla, dopravy, tak jo, jakékoliv další náklady, které by byly spojeny s tím vaším studiem ve Velké Británii, případně s životem tady v České republice, abyste mohli ten rok dobře zvládnout. Také budete požádáni, nebo součástí té vizi bude o doplnění a informace, z jakých zdrojů budete svůj pobyt nebo svůj studijní pobyt financovat, protože jo, není to tak, že říkáme, že vám přispějeme ještě i na životní náklad, co se týče ubytování, ale budeme právě chtít od vás ten podklad, kde vy řeknete, co byste vyžadovali, abyste vůbec mohli odjet, nebo abyste mohli ten ten rok nebo ty 3 roky strávit studiem, tak co k tomu budete potřebovat. Taky necháváme na vašem rozhodnutí, jestli v češtině nebo v angličtině. No a pro studenty budeme vyžadovat, abyste nám nasdíleli výpis ze studijních výsledků. A pokud ta poslední část týkající se angličtiny je dobrovolná, protože ne všichni ti, co hovoří dobře anglicky, musí mít nějaký certifikát. Co se týče angličtiny, tak na King's College v rámci toho rekrutačního procesu vás prověří tím testem. Tak kdo má certifikát z anglického jazyka, tak ho může přiložit, kdo nemá, tak nemusí. No a celkově potom ten harmonogram z naší strany toho výběrového procesu. Takže dneska jsme vlastně začali tímto informačním webinářem. Okolo 19. března, což je příští týden ve středu, otevřeme přihlášky. Přihlášky budeme přijímat prostřednictvím grantového systému Granty. Někteří se s ním už znají, ale jsou vlastně informace o tom, bude součástí té výzvy. Nabízím potom dodatečně ještě individuální konzultace v průběhu vlastně té vaší přípravy, té žádosti, kde vám nasdílím možnosti, jak si zažádat o půlhodinový slot 4. dubna a 16. dubna. 11. května bude uzavírka podávání přihlášek, do 16. května tady interní hodnotící komise rozhodne o těch žadatelích, které potom postoupí dál, a druhé kolo s těmi vybranými bude 20. nebo 21. května. Jo. Co to bude obsahovat potom detailněji, to bude obsahovat ta výzva, takže to opravdu jenom orientačně, abyste věděli, jak se pohybujeme v čase. Do 2. června bychom rádi King's College postoupili všechny za nás úspěšné kandidáty, a takže ač podporujeme 2+2, tak může se stát, že to bude třeba 5+5, což by z našeho pohledu bylo úplně perfektní, a King's College by následně vlastně udělal to výběrového řízení, jak je zvyklý se všemi, jak britskými, tak potom mezinárodními studenty, a to rozhodnutí o tom přijetí by pak bylo v průběhu července, kdyby to potvrdila to rozhodnutí potom grantový výbor nadace, a včetně potom uzavřeme smlouvu. Jo. Takže toto je takhle ve zkratce kontakt na mě, ale Myslím, že už ho máte s tím, jak jsme si psali. Takže já bych teď mohla využít, nebo pokud chcete využít, nemusíme, tak dávám vám ještě prostor se zeptat, no co vás zajímá. Ano, Markéto? Neslyšíme, ale jste zamutovaná.
Tak, už asi dobrý?
Tak. Jo, dobrý.
Už se slyšíme. Já se omlouvám. Já nevím jenom, jestli jsem to teda pochopila správně, jako chápu, že pro mě jako pracujícího PhD je víceméně pase, to by musela typovat z práce skoro, ale to MSc, chápu, že je v nabídce pouze to MSc jako takové, ne takový ten diplom nebo certifikát, je to tak?
Jo,
ne,
jo, chceme
jako
tu full verzi.
Full verzi. A jestli jsem to teda správně pobrala, tak vlastně v rámci té full verze jde o to, že v té Anglii člověk stráví v rámci toho in-person jakoby nějaký ten týden vždycky na ten modul. Je to tak, že tam vlastně dále není to, že tam je vlastně celou dobu pouze na ten, je to tak, že chcete, aby tam byl in-person pouze na ten jako povinný modul.
Jo.
I na ty optionals?
Jo, já tomu tak rozumím, že vlastně v mezičase probíhají asi nějaké přípravy a studium a čtení a psaní, což může být samozřejmě kdekoliv, ale my bychom byli rádi, aby na ty moduly, aby se náš uchazeč nebo námi podpořený student se účastnil osobně těch 2 týdenních modulů, které bylo skvělé, že oni už napsali přímo i ty termíny, které to jsou. Některé teda byly i optional, že jste si mohli vybrat, já si myslím, že to bylo jenom u 2, jestli jsem dávala dobře pozor, takže jich tam oni představili celkem 5 nebo 6, ale to nevadí, že 2 byly optional, že jste si mohli vybrat jeden nebo druhý, ale tam ta možnost se připojit online, jak jsem říkala, pouze z vážných osobních důvodů, ale opravdu chceme, aby, je to i pilotní projekt, vlastně tím, jak se potom to osvědčí celkově, jak ten průběh, tak to nám dá nějakou zprávu do budoucna, jo? Jak jestli budeme chtít nebo tímto směrem a podporou tohoto druhu pokračovat. Takže je pro nás důležité, abychom z toho vytěžili maximum, což si myslíme, že tou osobní účastí na těch stanovených modulech, že to bude lepší, no, než sedět online v Ostravě.
Jednoznačně určitě lepší, jenom zjišťuju, aby potom člověk měl nějaký argument eventuálně pro šéfa. Dobře, děkuji moc.
Ano. Někdo ještě? Teď vás určitě nechci nutit, mně přišlo předtím, jsem vás tak vyzývala, protože opravdu, co se týče, jo, může být výzkum, počkejte, já si to přečtu. Tak se ptáte. No, nadace rodiny Vlčkový se věnuje rozvoji dětské paliativní péče, takže námi preferovaná, ale podporovaná témata budou výhradně v oblasti dětské paliativní péče, jo, nebo v celém toho oboru. Takže dospělou maximálně, i Lorna hovořila o výzkumných tématech třeba, které se věnují tranzici. Tak to může být případ, kde se ta dětská může jako mísit s tou dospělou, jo, ale je tam i ten obsah té dětské paliativní péče a zrovna ta tranzice je pro nás pro nadaci a celkově pro obor velmi, velmi důležitým tématem. Jo, Lidie, já jsem nevšimla si, že se hlásíte.
Jo, ja mám tak na ujasnenie 2 otázky. Takže nadácia by ako podporila jednom z tým školným a za všetko ostatné tie výdavky, ktoré budeme mať na život, to si musíme akože zrekapitulovať a podať doklad o tom, že skade by sme tie peniaze ťahali. Je to tak?
Je to tak, jak říkáte, že 100% školné s tím, že vlastně ty náklady, jo, že pro mástra a pro PhD budou jiná. Samozřejmě každý pochází jako z jiné, jak to řekla, z jiné životní situace a my vůbec nemáme představu, co všecko daný žadatel, aby mohl studovat, co bude potřebovat, aby přežil, nebo jo, aby mohl studovat. Takže my v této chvíli to máme namyšlené tak, že tam je, že na základě té finanční rozvahy a doložení toho, že žadatel má nějaké zdroje vlastní nebo bude čerpat třeba i z podpory třeba jiných nadací nebo může být stipendií a tak dále, tak my si uděláme nějakou představu o té finanční náročnosti a pak dojdeme k nějakému rozhodnutí. Jo. Ale neřeknu vám, že vám budeme, kromě toho školného, že vám každý rok ještě budeme posílat jako určitou částku, jo, defaultně. To teď neumím říct, ale od toho bude právě ta ekonomická rozvaha finanční vaše.
Děkujem.
Josefe. Musíš se za to teď.
Už se slyším, vidím. Jenom je takovou jednu poznámku, že samozřejmě některý student bude vyslán do King's College a bude to absolvovat, ale zase z hlediska nadace a vůbec celé dětské paliativní péče by bylo dobře, kdyby ty lidé tyto zkušenosti pak dokázali aplikovat do skutečně dětské paliativní péče v České republice. Aby to nebylo jenom tak, že někdo absolvuje tento kurz, získá certifikát z King's College a pak nám zmizí někam do jiných profesí. Čili to je cílem nejenom jak si umožnit několika lidem toto studovat, ale aby oni pak dokázali to aplikovat do podmínek v České republice pro zlepšení dětské paliativní péče u nás.
Jo, to děkuju moc za toto, protože to je velmi, velmi důležité. My také budeme v rámci těch podmínek potom požadovat, aby po návratu nebo po skončení toho studia, aby daný žadatel strávil minimálně 3 roky prací a rozvoje svého oboru v rámci dětské paliativní péče v České republice. Jo? Takže, Markéto? Ještě,
to asi navazující otázka. Asi už na to bylo i zodpovězeno, jenom aby to zaznělo. Je to jako jedinečná příležitost. Je možné, že se to bude opakovat i v dalších letech. Já chápu, že teďka je to pilotní zřejmě, ale je nějaký předpoklad, že by se třeba tahle nabídka mohla opakovat i pro nějaké další roky, když to třeba člověk teďka v téhleté fázi úplně nezvládne.
Co se týče i toho začátku, co se týče mástra, tak ten určitě by začal v říjnu letos. Co se týče PhD, tak oni nabízí možnost a my jsme s ním v souladu, že tam byly i pozdější termíny nástupu. Myslím, že tam byl únor, který bych viděla případně jako tu druhou možnost. My to máme, tuto výzvu jako pilot, která bude následně vyhodnocena, takže já neumím říct, že za rok toto bude zopakováno. Nicméně by dávalo smysl potom, jak jste se ptala i na ty, teď já to neumím dobře nazvat, ale ne tu full master verzi, ale třeba jenom ty programy, které vyžadují nebo budou mít méně kreditu. Dokážu si představit, že bychom třeba tímto směrem můžeme zopakovat tu výzvu, ale neumím říct, jestli to bude za rok nebo za 2. Ale určitě, co se týče King's College nebo celkově naší podpory toho mezinárodního vzdělávání nebo dlouhodobého stipendia, tak určitě s tím neskončíme. Naopak se podíváme, jak nám to půjde v rámci toho pilotu a můžeme se podívat i jako na další univerzity. V té Británii King's College je pro nás opravdu tou nejlepší, ale je tam řada velmi dobrých univerzit, kde se paliativní péče vyučuje na velmi vysoké úrovni. Takže uvidíme, rozvíjíme se. Tak jestli určitě, co se týče toho výběrového řízení, nebo výběrového, toho bych to napsal, toho výběru, tak více informací bude ten příští týden. Budeme určitě avizovat v odborném newsletteru, budeme dávat na naše webové stránky i na naše sociální sítě. Já vám, jakmile to znění té výzvy bude sfinalizováno, tak já vám ho, protože mám na vás všechny, mám e-mailové adresy, takže vám ho i pošlu, tak určitě nepropásnete. Já vím, že ten čas na to rozhodnutí podání té přihlášky není dlouhý, ale věřím, že tato příležitost je opravdu jedinečná a mohli byste být součástí opravdu to jako pilotu, který tady ještě, co se týče podpory v rámci dětské paliativní péče, se domnívám, že nebyl. Takže bych vás chtěla povzbudit a určitě jsme otevřeni k jakýmkoliv konzultacím. Já jsem tam navrhla ty 2 termíny, ale kontakt na mě máte a jsem otevřená a k dispozici konzultovat nebo probírat různé záležitosti týkající se studia, po případě toho výběru nebo sepsání žádnosti kdykoliv. Tak jestli někdo nic nemá, nemusíme využít tu půl hodinu úplně celou, tak můžete, kdyby vás napadlo i něco později, napište e-mail, i jak Lorna Fraser velmi laskavě nabídla, pokud se vám, nebo zjistíte, že neodpověděla na nějakou otázku, kterou jste měli, nebo vás to napadlo až později, tak určitě napište e-mail mě, já bych ty otázky případně nějak sdružila třeba po pár dnech nebo do konce týdne a poslala jí to naráz a potom vám dám tu hromadnou odpověď, abychom ji nepsali na hodněkrát. Tak jestli z vaší strany už opravdu není žádný dotaz, tak bych vám moc poděkovala, že jste si našli čas o váš zájem, který věnujete této příležitosti a budeme se těšit, že se budeme pročítat vašimi žádostmi a budete, nebo jsou mezi vámi ti, kteří na podzim na King's College už vyjedou. Tak děkujeme. Tak hezký zbytek dne. Děkujeme. Nashledanou.
Nashledanou.
Nashledanou.